The story opens at an isolated splinter monastery on a remote rock 5 hours off the Kowloon Peninsula, a sanctuary where forgotten clergy are sent. A nervous lay priest, Brother Tomas, is tasking another father with delivering a message to Father Gabriel. Tomas expresses genuine fear, mentioning that Gabriel terrifies him and seems trapped in a constant state of looking into another world. The father cautions Tomas that Gabriel has endured immense hardship and possesses dark, unsettling insights. Delivering this message will test Tomas's courage and mercy. Tomas nervously approaches Father Gabriel during his meditations to announce that he has visitors. Holding a dark, mystical dagger, Father Gabriel stoically responds that he has already been waiting for them. Rogue flies in carrying her husband, Gambit, Remy LeBeau, floating down to confront Father Gabriel and the young priest. Internal monologue reveals Rogue is deeply unsettled by the creepy, spiritual energy of the monastery and would normally run, but she is doing this solely out of love for her husband. Rogue introduces herself and explains her desperate situation. Something awful, dark, and full of hate is inside Remy, and it is growing worse. She addresses the priest directly, stating plain and simple that they are there because they need an exorcist. Father Gabriel singles out Rogue first, lecturing her on how her chosen name implies she is an undependable aberration, or a killer that needs to be put down, telling her she is riddled with darkness. Moving on to Remy, Gabriel places his hand on Gambit's face to sense what is inside him, and immediately realizes this is no good man. Gambit sneers, agreeing that he isn't a good man. Declaring that whatever is inside him is hungry, Gambit viciously bites down on Father Gabriel's hand, drawing blood. As a panicked Brother Tomas rushes to check Gabriel's bleeding hand, Gabriel brusquely brushes him off. Rogue and Tomas both anxiously ask Gabriel what he saw inside Remy during that spiritual contact. A dramatic top panel reveals a dark vision of a monstrous, bat-winged Gambit looming over Rogue amidst fallen bodies. Shaken by what he experienced, Father Gabriel claims he saw nothing and tells Rogue she has brought an unknown evil to his door. Refusing to help, he orders them to leave immediately and never return. Frustrated, Rogue calls him out for turning his back on their kind, revealing that she knows about the Iron Cathedral, calling his bluff on his holy authority. Admitting with all his heart that he wishes he didn't know about it either, Father Gabriel relents. He changes his mind and invites them inside, agreeing to face and meet the demon inside Gambit. At Haven House in Louisiana, Calico wakes up groggy and crying in bed, reminding herself to go downstairs and make pancakes for her mama. In the kitchen, Jubilee is trying to cook while Nightcrawler asks Monet how her first night at Haven House felt after spending months imprisoned at Grey Malkin. Monet admits the bed was so comfortable it actually felt uncomfortable after being in prison for so long. Quicksilver chiming in notes that Monet ended up kicking off the quilts to sleep on the floor instead. When the mother figure in the kitchen mentions she made those quilts, Monet politely excuses her preference before casually listing her specific breakfast order: 2 poached eggs with toast and chutney, no pork. Monet's demanding breakfast order immediately shocks Nightcrawler and Jubilee, leading the house host to sarcastically remind Monet that she isn't in a castle anymore and can make her own food. Jubilee pulls Monet aside to explain that the people running the house aren't hired help, but they're hosts, leaving Monet dryly noting she managed to offend the Lady of the Manor in under 9 hours. Calico wanders into the room in a sleepwalking daze, muttering disjointed thoughts about needing to use the bathroom and making pancakes for her mama. Nightcrawler tries to gently guide the traumatized girl back upstairs, but Quicksilver steps in to help her instead, driven by a rare soft spot he has for deeply hurting children. Quicksilver gently carries the sleepwalking girl upstairs, offering to help her, but Becca suddenly snaps back to full consciousness, demands he let go of her, and snaps that he's not even a mutant before running away. A slightly bruised Quicksilver walks back to Monet and Jubilee, admitting that Becca definitely doesn't like him. Jubilee sarcastically points out 3 more teenagers entering the room, offering him a chance to try being charming again. The 3 young mutants react to Quicksilver and Monet with complete apathy and sarcasm, making it clear that getting through to these traumatized kids isn't going as smoothly as hoped. Remembering a promise she made to Rogue to give this her best effort, Monet decides to skip breakfast and take charge, ordering all the kids to report to the danger room in 10 minutes for mandatory training. The young mutants put on their classic yellow and black X uniforms, instantly boosting their mood as they admire how official and uncanny they look. Monet ties a ribbon containing a signet ring belonging to her father onto the robotic dog, Waffles. She announces a training challenge. Whoever catches Waffles wins the ring and gets Monet to do all their kitchen chores for an entire week. Monet orders Waffles into evasive, non-lethal mode as the teens enthusiastically charge into the game, yelling and showing off their mutant abilities in a chaotic free-for-all. As the kids dodge, jump, and ride horses to catch the robot dog, Becca watches them secretly from behind a tree, admitting to herself that despite trying to stay isolated, it actually looks like fun. As the young mutants play their training game, the horse rider falls, prompting Quicksilver to dash in and catch her safely in his arms. Once set down, Becca snaps at Quicksilver and violently pushes him away, crying and screaming that he is not Gambit and can never be him. A tearful Becca hits Quicksilver's chest, sobbing that he needs to stop trying to be Gambit because she knows deep down that Gambit is gone and never coming back. As the other kids rush over to comfort a weeping Becca on the ground, Monet and Quicksilver look on, sobered and stunned by the emotional outburst. The group heads deep into a claustrophobic room in the monastery catacombs to perform the exorcism. Rogue secretly vows that if things go wrong, she will put Gambit down herself rather than letting him be restrained. Rogue asks Father Gabriel why he isn't using a Bible. Gabriel explains that while he brought a book, the entity inside Remy is far older than traditional scripture can address. Expecting the worst, Gabriel hands Rogue his dark dagger, instructing her to aim directly for Remy's heart if the demon cannot be saved. In instruction, Rogue pleads with him not to speak. A chaotic crowd panel reveals the dark presence within Remy mocking Father Gabriel, calling him defrocked, unwanted, insane, and tauntingly asking what amusement he has brought it. The demon taking over Gambit manifests as a giant insectoid fly-like creature, mockingly taunting Father Gabriel as one of God's unfortunate mistakes, and questioning if anyone will miss him or if his widow will see his torment. Unfazed by the terrifying apparition, Father Gabriel calls it a false devil and a surf imp, casting a banishment spell to force it back to its true master. As the creature vanishes, Rogue demands to know what just happened. Father Gabriel casually dismisses the entity, explaining that lesser demons often like to cosplay and put on dramatic displays to intimidate. Monet kneels down to comfort a crying Calico, Becca, reassuring her that if anyone has the skill to outmaneuver the devil, it's Remy LeBeau, Gambit. Calico tearfully asks for a promise that he'll be okay. Monet recognizes the cracking voice of a girl mourning her father figure, and agrees to give her space when Calico asks to be left alone so she can just be sad for a minute. Calico gently turns away her friend Jitter as well. Standing off to the side, Quicksilver coldly remarks that Gambit's absence is unseemly, declaring that if Gambit truly cared for Calico, he wouldn't have abandoned her. Shocked and angered by Quicksilver's cruel comment, Ember warns him, while Calico turns back around in a sudden, furious rage, her eyes fixed on him as she snarls out, "Lissavirus, rabies." Enraged by Quicksilver's words, Calico sends her fiery, summoned horse, Ember, charging straight at him. The fiery beast strikes Quicksilver before he can react, knocking him backward through the air. Ignoring the other kids' pleas to call Ember back, Calico coldly commands her horse to go faster. Quicksilver catches himself on the ground, bruised and struggling to recover as the flaming horse charges again at rapid speed, threatening to kill him. Seeing the deadly threat, Monet flies into action, dashing in to intercept the fiery horse before it can strike Quicksilver a second time. Monet flies in and physically grabs Ember, putting a firm stop to the fiery horse's assault. Pressed by Jitter, Becca finally relents and recalls Ember to her side, where the horse calms down into its normal form. Monet reprimands Becca, pointing out that she could have killed Quicksilver. Unrepentant, Becca ominously mutters, "Still might," and warns Monet to keep Quicksilver far away from her. Apologizing only to her friend Sophia, Jitter, Becca mounts Ember and rides off, leaving the group behind. Rattled by the intense drama and heartbreak, the remaining kids declare the training session over and forfeit the game, leaving Quicksilver and Monet standing in silence. Father Gabriel claims the lesser demon is gone, but Rogue points out that Remy looks terribly sick and feels ice cold to the touch, realizing the threat hasn't left him at all. A dark, shadowy mass hovers in the air above them. The entity mockingly explains that the fly creature from earlier wasn't banished, but merely a change of clothes. Father Gabriel demands to know what this dark presence wants. The entity reveals it is no mere imp, but Thanasil, tormentor of thieves. a demon lord so ancient and powerful that even the Vishanti refuse to touch the artifact holding it. Shadowy, insectoid creatures begin swarming around them. Unintimidated, Rogue compares the dark environment to the lethal Savage Land, declaring that whenever someone threatens her husband, that is her Savage Land, and readies herself to fight off the horde for Remy. Rogue throws kinetic charge cards to slice through the swarming dark shadows, realizing that through her connection to Gambit, she can feel the entity inside her as well. A demoniacally transformed, bat-winged Gambit tauntingly reveals he isn't throwing normal playing cards, but holy prayer cards charged with kinetic energy to destroy the insectoid minions. Stunned that someone so infused with infernal evil can manipulate holy scripture, the Demon Lord asks how Gambit is doing this. The demon claims Remy was chosen precisely because he is infused with evil. Looking the chitinous creature right in its eyes, Rogue defends her husband, declaring that Remy himself isn't evil. It is the cursed eye possessing him that holds the true malice. The demon mockingly retorts that only a creature with two eyes could be so blind. The Demon Lord exposes Father Gabriel, revealing to Rogue that he isn't carrying a holy Bible at all. He is holding the Darkhold, the cursed book of the damned. The demon taunts Rogue further, mocking the young mutants she and Gambit have taken in, declaring that every single one of those children is hellbound, and that a special place in hell is reserved for them. The creature reveals that its master is not seeking Rogue and Gambit as food, but as a peer, referring to Rogue as Wyvern. Furious at the demon's mind games and threats against her family, Rogue yells at it to shut its filthy lion mouth, as she lunges directly at the dark entity to strike it down. At Haven's non-mutant cemetery, Becca sits near a gravestone with Ember, crying over how her mother warned her she would hurt people, confessing that she never meant to hurt anyone and feels completely lost. A monstrous, undead-like Sabretooth, Mr. Creed, suddenly looms out of the mist, leaping into view and startling Becca. He seems disoriented, muttering about fighting the Runt and wondering where all the fog came from. Hotaru appears alongside Becca, explaining gently that spirits sometimes wander away from the dark artery, becoming confused and forgetting that they are actually dead. Reaching out a comforting hand, Hotaru gently takes Creed's hand to guide him back home, telling him there is room for everyone as they walk off into the graveyard fog together. Elsewhere on the grounds, Logan, Wolverine, checks on Nightcrawler, Kurt Wagner, who is kneeling in prayer inside a rundown, ruined church chapel. Kurt reflects on the chapel's history, noting that locals have burned it down over a dozen times across 200 years, yet it was always rebuilt. When Logan asks if there's a specific reason for his prayer, Kurt reveals he is praying for their friend Remy LeBeau, Gambit, who was once lost and then truly found. Kurt admits how deeply worried he is for Gambit. Even though Logan isn't particularly religious himself, he tells Kurt to scooch over so he can quietly sit and join him in solidarity. After defeating the creature, Rogue winces at a horrific stench left behind. Gambit notes that she likely sent the demon back to hell, but Father Gabriel immediately orders them both to leave. Gabriel warns them that the foul smell is 2,000 years of demonic corruption, cautioning them not to touch the leftover ichor. He admits his own past pride and vanity led him to underestimate the threat, revealing that this entity was a high-ranking lord of an infernal court. Gabriel warns that even a demon lord of that caliber is merely a servant to the true owner of the eye possessing Gambit. Admitting that he is completely powerless to help them, Father Gabriel states there might be one other person who can, finishing with a grave prayer: "May God help us all."